Seems legit.
Good morning, Legitimates. Welcome to today's video. I have done something a bit different because I felt like playing with power tools today. It's literally why this bag's happened. So, I've done the Nora Doctor Bag by Swoon. We've got bag feet. But instead of that overstrap that would have hidden our beautiful print, I've still put my metal in the top, but I've put mini rivet magnets in the top to hold it closed, just because I can. Now, if you don't have power tools, the solution is, instead of the metal that I show you in here, you just put like boning, like the plastic stuff you can get from Spotlight or wherever. It will make it easier to do this top bit. It just won't make it as firm as the metal. And other than that, it's all pretty easy. So let's go. Let's get started. I have already put my interfacing and foam on all of the pieces. I do that off camera because watching me iron can't be the most exciting thing in the universe. I'm going to take my 3/4 inch double-sided tape, and these are going to be the strap connectors. I'm just doing normal rectangle one, normal like strap ones, but you could replace these with something else. You could do like fancy strap connectors, or you could even do something embroidered. This bag won't, so I don't have any embroidery designs that would suit this particular fabric. But maybe some zombie hands would be cool if you can find the design. I can't digitize, so I'm sticking with this. Okay, so now I am going to pull back the tape on just one, and I'm going to squish it together and push it down just kind of anywhere. You don't have to start at the edge, just start wherever you like. I'm using 1 inch strap connectors because I like 1 inch on this bag, but you can do a different size. And then I'm going to put the ring on. And I like to measure up or down from the top 1 1/4. I know that sounds like an odd size, but what that does is it just gives it a little bit extra to be able to stitch down. So I do 1 1/4, but you can do whatever you like. Most people do 1. I do that extra little bit just to give it an extra little bit of grip. So I'm pinching together and pushing down. Grab my next one, slide it on. 1 1/4, according to my table ruler. Might stop at 2 in case it pulls up. So now I'm going to take my main panel, turn it upside down, and find the center. Although we may as well find the center of both ends because we always need the center, let's be honest. That'll be helpful for later, I'm sure. And then I'm going to take a ruler. I'm going to take my 4 inch ruler and my Chaco pen because it is indeed erasable. And I want to go, I don't want to hide the central design. So because of that, I'm probably making my straps a little bit wider than normal, but I don't care. So for this particular design, I'm doing 3.5 inches. And that way I won't hide any of the cool hands. But you can, follow the actual pattern. It's depending on like what you've got going on in the middle. Straps are mostly movable to a point. You obviously don't want them here. That would be silly. But there's wiggle room of a few inches. Now I'm on a size 4 stitch length. And so here's my line. I'm going to put it on the outside of the line so I'm not covering the cool middle bit. Line it up with the bottom. And then I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch. I didn't backstitch, and that's okay. But I'm doing 1/8 of an inch from the outer edge. I'm lining this up. When I get closer, I'm going to take the clip off needle down, pivot around, go across the top. Now I can already tell, because of this, I actually need to reverse a few steps so that they actually stitch. So I've just done 3. 3 feels like enough today. And then I can turn it around, and now it won't skip stitches because the foot's too high. Another little thing to keep in mind, if you are going to make the straps further apart, you will want to make your handles longer than the pattern says, just so that they still fall at the same height. Food for thought. Line it up. Right along that line. We draw it to make sure that we put our strap connectors on straight, so make sure you're constantly checking it. That's why we do these things. Alright, and then I'm going again to reverse a couple of stitches, just so I can get in place without it skipping any. I need my snips that I dropped. Luckily for me, I have another pair right here. I will pick them up later. So that's now the front, and I haven't covered the cool central design while still having amazing flaps. Or straps, sorry, they're not flaps, they're straps. Alright, same thing again. So we're going to find the center. And I'm doing these now just because they were on top. You don't have to start with these, you could start with your bag feet. Or whatever, really. Whatever's going. Start on the lining first. You could make the whole lining before you do the outside. You could do half the outside and half the lining, although sometimes that's more annoying than it sounds. It depends on how many zipper pockets any bag has. This one's just got a single zipper pocket in it. And otherwise the lining's quite simple. So the outside's got more going on with it. But these were just on top, so that's why I've started with the strap connectors. They were the last thing I cut. I like to just rub it on the table to help give a crease. So again, whatever you measure for this, you just have to make sure it's the same. So I did 1 1/4, so I have to do 1 1/4 on all pieces. Otherwise you're going to have lopsided straps. Which, I don't know, might be your thing. Grab it, clip it, done. Chaco pen again. We have to do the same measurements we just did. So, if you did a different measurement, you would just have to make the strap on this side a different size. So if you move these closer together, which I'm not sure why you would, but let's just pretend for a second that you do. You just have to remember to adjust the strap pieces so that when they're coming up together, they at least reach the same spot. Just as if you need like a weird design feature, you could have different width straps. That could look really cool if you did it right. That's why I'm bringing it up. My brain's like, ooh, could I do that? Not on this one. I've already cut all this. I don't want to waste stuff. Needle down. Pivot. Sometimes it'll do all the stitches and you don't have to do that reverse thing. I can usually just tell, and that's just from excessive amount of bag making. You can just tell. Flip off. I just ran out of thread. Luckily for me, I have another one prepared. And put it under. And so then I'm just going to go back a few stitches and I'm just going to let them hang out. Ah, oh, no, the bobbin's playing up. Don't be like that. It means it got a loop. It shouldn't have because it's not that big. But anyway, these things happen. So what I was going to say is leave a tail and then we'll stitch through them. So I'm just going to go back to where I originally started. Needle down, pivot. Now I can come and tug on this. I'm going to grab my sewall because I can't do it with my fingers anymore, and pull the tail through to the back and then tie it off. And I'm doing it now so I don't accidentally stitch the tails into the other side when I come back down. Now that's tied off everything. This side's going to need a reverse. I can feel it. Again, it's just a practice thing. You'll know. A back stitch, but it wasn't really necessary. Okay. Let's grab our base piece. So I've already put on the base interfacing, which is lovely and thick. I'll grab my favorite pen. And I'm going to measure out some lines to put my bag feet on. Now you can be a bit chill about this. Alright, and then we just want to go corner to corner. I'm going to put 5 on this today, just because I can. Grab a hole punch, and then everywhere the lines intersect is where we're punching a hole. So right in the middle there, and then here, and here. And I think I only grabbed 4 bag feet, so I'll have to grab another one, but that's alright. We're going to push these up from the bottom. I love these type of bag feet, but some people prefer the screw-in ones. That's totally fine. You'll just screw them in instead of doing what I'm doing. Or if you don't have a cam press, the screw-in ones are a great option, so long as you've got a small screwdriver. You can get cheap non-electric ones for like $5 or $6 for a set. I just obviously prefer the electric one because it's amazing. And then we're just going to squish them down, and you should feel it. As you squish, it kind of, you feel it cement. Unless, and then try and pull your bag feet off. Try and flick them off. The reason we do that is to make sure that they're properly stuck. It's really hard, it's not impossible, but it is really hard to put a bag foot on after you've made a bag. You have to unpick stuff and do stuff. It's a lot more tricky. So if you check now, at least if they fall off now, it's an easy fix. If they fall off later, less so. So I'm going to clip the base and one of the panels, it doesn't matter if it's front or back, and I'm going to go to a 2.5 stitch length, and this bag has a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Ooh. Can you hear that? I can hear that. Stop it. It's chewing something. The bobbin is just not my friend today. Stop it. I won't get anywhere if it keeps behaving like this. move the tub because I nearly knocked it off the table. Back stitch. Then we're going to trim off all those tails because there's a whole bunch at this end. I'm going to go up to a 4 stitch length and I'm going to fold this seam onto the base and then top stitch along. Just the base. You want to go slowly because it could be bulky. And back stitch. And then we're going to do the same to the other half. Back to joining stitch length. It's going to look fantastic. I'm just going to move that onto the floor. Because of the excess, there was a very good chance I'd knock it all down. Trim off that, and then we're going to go up to a 4 stitch length again, and I'm going to fold this in towards the base piece again, and then we're going to top stitch again. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. Pretty. A couple of other colors you could have done with this. A nice coral would have looked amazing, or a nice pale blue. I do plan on doing pale blue on a different bag, so bear with me for that one. Alright, we're going to take our side pieces, which again I have put the interfacing on already. Joining stitch length of 2.5, and I'm just going to fold these together and sew the, what are they called? Darts is the word I'm looking for. Right. I'm going to chain stitch them. So I'm going to grab both of them like this. Trim them apart so then I can do the other one. I'm still doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance on these because if you do it too small, it doesn't fit nicely like it should. And we want it to. So, done. Okay. Now, I want the center of this, so I'm going to line up the 2 darts and then find the center here. Same with this one. If you're going to have a shoulder strap, now's the time to attach your strap connector. I would be putting D-rings on the side if you were doing that. And then I'm going to fold this in the center and find the center of the base. It's just an easier way to line them up instead of guessing. It's a little bit more clinical. So we're going to push this out, line up the center. I always do it at the center out. It's just my thing. And you want to use extra clips. You want to use at least 3 clips before you move on. Now, this dart should line up with this side seam, just if you don't know that. And I'm going to push it towards the outside so that the seam will sit flatter, like that. Alright, so that seam should line up with that seam and then clip it down. Then we can fold the bag up and come to the top and line the top up and work our way down to the curve. I'm just going to bring that closer. Right, down towards the curve. Or up from the curve to the straight. You can do it either way. It's all much of a muchness. But what you don't want to do is start here and work towards the end. It is quite easy to pull it so it's not lined up the way it's meant to be. Like right now it looks like there's a big bubble. There won't be once I actually line it up and stitch it, clip it. It looks can be deceiving. Like so. It fits fine. I'm going to put that one in the tub while I sew this side. So I'm still on a 2.5 stitch length and I'm still doing my 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're going to stitch and back stitch. If you're on a cylinder arm, it is much easier to do this in the opposite direction. But we're not on the cylinder arm, so we're doing it this way. It's trying to do a bump, which I'm not obviously okay with. So I'm just using the stiletto to push it where it's meant to sit. Because I don't have nails anymore and I don't want to put my finger that close. It's literally why. Work our way up. And backstitch when you get to the end. Trim that off. We're going to grab our zigzag scissors and trim down this. Now it might be a bit chunky, especially towards the bottom, but do it anyway. It'll help for our top stitching later. It'll be less bulky. It'll also make the lining sit inside much, much easier. So just do it. And if you don't have zigzag scissors, you can just use normal ones. But you just want to trim it down because it's going to be easier, I promise. Now let's do the same to the other side. And then that's nearly our outsides done. This is a very good looking bag. I'm quite excited about this. And of course my rainbow clips. Again, we want to push that so that it's the opposite side to your bulk from the base. It'll just help you to be able to, especially on a domestic, it's going to help you get over that seam a lot easier. So don't skip that step. Consciously think about the dart pieces. You'll thank me one day, I promise. Probably not today. You'll probably curse me out. But eventually. Lots of clips. I don't know. I feel like doing lots of clips. This bag is very pink. If I had enough time and fabric, I would literally make the same one but with blue accents to show you that the same bag in different colors would look very different. Okay, so let's do this side. Up and under, stitch, back stitch. Make sure the stitches are going to behave, because for a second there I thought it wasn't going to. Clips away, and then again with the zigzag scissors, or you, again, if you don't have them, it's okay. Just use normal ones. I'm going to use them because I've got them, but it will work nearly as well without them. Right, nearly done on the outside. The last thing is our little top parts, I'm going to use 1/4 inch double-sided tape on the edges. Lost the end. Okay. And then I'm also going to mark how far in I'm going to go, because these have to be even or it's going to look weird. So we're going to go to there, which is obviously just a little bit, but worth it. Trim that, flip them around. So I'm currently measuring in 5/8, if you're wondering. This is not a 1-inch ruler, it's a 1 1/4 inch ruler. So I've measured in 5/8, but you can do 1/2 inch or a whole inch or whatever floats your boat. And then what I want to do is I want to tuck this to that line, and one end I'm going to top stitch. The other end I am not. Alright, so one end on each of these, and this is so I can put the metal in later. You can use, what's it called? Like boning. I like to use metal. I discovered this when I first started making the bag. It makes this top really stiff and strong. And because I'm putting the rivet magnets in it, that's what I want to do. So with the other end, we're just going to fold it up to the line, but then we're going to fold it in half this way and clip it so it can't come undone. Alright, so right side, wrong sides together, and then wrong sides together. And then on this joining stitch length, I'm going to start, whoops, at the folded edge, and we're going to stitch the whole thing shut. So I'm going to lift this up, pop it in, stitch, back stitch, stitch down, and then along the raw edge here, I'm just going to sew the 2 layers together with 1/8 of an inch. And just top stitching it so it becomes one piece, again, because it's easier to deal with. Then same with this. I'm going to take the clip off. I'm going to start right near the top. I'm going to stitch. I'm going to back stitch. I'm going to forward stitch. Needle down, pivot. And that way I've got an end to push it into, and then the other end it won't fall out of. We are going to have to hand stitch. That is the downside to doing it this way, but I'm pretty okay with that. So these are the bag bits. So I'm just going to put that. Oh, I've made them a bit long apparently. Well, that's annoying, but that's okay. So I want them this long. So what's that long? You want them 11.5 inches long. So the end that I joined, I'm just going to unpick. Because I made them too long. Whoopsies. So 11.5. No, wait, that's 10.5. 11.5. So to here. I'm going to have to unpick. And by unpick, I mean just cut the snip this. You can use a quick unpick if you want to. Personally, I'm not a fan. So I need them to come to here. Chop that off. Fold it under. check again. To there. I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to stitch, back stitch, stitch, down. And then if you want to, you can just reseal that end. Now they're going to fit better. You can actually just cut that whole end off so you don't have to unpick it, because we're going to cut it off anyway, see? Pull this apart, snip, pull, snip, pull. Line it up. That's where I want to fold it. So I'm going to fold it, and then I'm just going to stitch that back together like I did. It's a bit of a stuff around, but that's my fault for not measuring. Don't be mad at me for that. Now they'll fit, which is the main point. Clip them into the middle. Same with this one. Now you can have the open ends at the same end or the opposite. It doesn't really matter because we are going to stitch them closed. I'm also going to put some magnets on here because in my head this looks really cool. I've never tried this before, but I think it's going to work out fine. So, done. Let's move on to the lining, because the lining's pretty quick, really. We're going to do a Tory pocket. So we're going to take the piece and fold it in half to find the center. And then the pocket, the half that I drew on, also going to find the center. Like that. And then we just line them up. Easy peasy. I don't want it too high or too low. So I'm going to put it just above half. I mean, you can have it lower. I don't want to. You also want to make sure that it's straight, because I can tell you right now that that was not. You can put a ruler along here if you need to check if it's straight or not. We're going to stitch. We're going to back stitch. We're going to pivot around. We're going to do the same to the other end. Stitch, back stitch. Oops, just dropped it. Oh well, it happens. I'm trimming all the tails and all the jump stitches. And then always check from the back to make sure your line's straight. It's easier from the back because you've got no other fabrics kind of interrupting. Because if it's not straight, you need to unpick it before we go cutting. Pinch it, cut it in the center. And then I'm going to open it out and cut roughly in the middle. It's not middle to the millimeter, but I'm eyeballing it into the middle. So long as you're not like right against one side, it'll be fine. Okay, now I need to iron this, push the pocket through and iron it flat. We're all ironed beautiful and flat. I have got my zipper here with my zipper pull on. To be honest, I did pull it a little bit further than I normally would. I normally pull it about 1/3 of the way, but it'll be fine. I'm not super worried. So I'm going to come in front of the zipper, like the way it's going to close. And I'm going to stitch this way. And I have to pull on my little triangle tags. I cut them a little bit short. So they're just poking out and annoying me a little bit. That's alright. I'm not going to backstitch. And I'm going to remember to tuck my arms in. I don't care how ridiculous it feels. It's good for your shoulders. You should do it too. Sewing like this hurts your shoulders in the long run. Trust me, I've had plenty of massages to fix it. So, tuck my arms in. Down the end. Back stitch. trim off the tails. So I went over a couple of stitches and that locked in both ends of it for me. I'm going to fold this down. I'm going to stitch, back stitch, and then back stitch when we get to the end. We're going to leave the bottom of the pocket open. We're going to leave a big chunk of the bag open. Oh no, where are you going? It's getting a bit hot and the blue tack's not, it's getting a bit melty. But I don't want to super glue them there. Alright, stitch and back stitch at both ends, leaving the bottom of the pocket open. If you're one of those forgetful people, open it up now. Then I'm going to grab the bottom of the bag, line it up, and I'm just going to stitch a little bit. When I say a little bit, I mean, I don't know, what's that, 3-ish inches? About 3 inches. Because we need to be able to do the sides of the bag, but I also want a gap to turn the bag through. So that's going to be here. Trim off the tails. And the reason we do this first is because in case you forget to leave a gap, you've still got a second side to do it to. Because trust me, we've all been there. I don't have to worry about the direction of stuff because I've kind of already done that. It's not an overly directional print. So, stitch, back stitch. Stitch all the way along the other side. You don't need 2 gaps to turn a bag through. That would be weird. And so now we've got this. We're going to pop that aside and grab our ends. And we're going to sew our little darts. One. So I'm going with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you line it up and then what will happen is you'll end up sewing past the join because it's 1/2 inch from here. So you just got to line that bit up. I want to show that just in case you missed it. We're not just sewing that shut, we're sewing it shut with a 1/2 inch seam allowance so that everything's going to work out. Ta-da! Then we're going to do the same that we did for the outside. But you can start, because it's lining, it's way more pliable when it's lining. So I'm actually going to just join the darts first. Then you can kind of use your fingers to bring that together. Add 1 clip. You need less clips for the lining compared to the exterior. For a start, there's no foam to fight with. Alright, look at that. Ta-da! Much less clipping. And also because it's lining, you can clip both sides at the same time. And the bag, because it won't stand up because there's no foam, it won't get in the way while you sew the other side, which is kind of nice. Line up there and there. So I'm going to clip both of the ends at the same time. You don't have to, and if you don't have enough clips to do that, just do one at a time. I just feel like this is probably going to be quicker for me. And that's why I'm doing it. Clip it. The clips just help prevent it from shifting while you're sewing. It's getting quite warm in here. I left my drink bottle of water in the house. How annoying. Alright. Don't forget to hydrate, people. So, stitch, back stitch, tuck your arm in. And I say it so you don't just see me do weird movements, even though it is a weird movement. At least you know why I'm doing said weird movement. I'm going to run out of bobbin thread again soon, I'm pretty sure. That's why I'm not doing the straps yet. I want a fresh bobbin to do the straps. I'm doing all this stuff that you don't see, so if I run out of thread, it's not the end of the world. Bring it around. Make sure you keep flicking the bag out of the way. See, there's the end of the thread. I knew it was coming. Bobbin is fixed. I'm just going to go back a few stitches. I'm going to stitch, and then I'm going to drag it back to the start again and stitch over. So there'll basically be 3 layers of stitches in that little section. But it means I didn't have to back stitch, which means my bobbin didn't mess up like it normally does, because it's a jerk. Zigzag scissors. And again, cut this off. I want the 2 layers to join nicely inside the bag, and all this extra fabric will prevent it from sitting nicely. So it's better to just eliminate it. And don't cut your stitches like I nearly just did then. It doesn't seem like much, but it will make a difference. I'm going to turn that out the right way, and then we're going to tuck it into here. Like that. And the first thing I'm going to do is clip the seams together. Like that. Same with the opposite side of the bag. It's important that these seams match up, because it'll look weird if they don't. So I like to start there. Then I'm just going to put 1 clip in the middle on the short ends, because I like to do short ends first. And because now the long ends already have clips in place. So you just open them up and add in the next layer. Like so. Now, before I do that, I'm going to do these so that I don't knock them off. And because I spend all the time ironing them and I don't want it to come undone. So, again with the double-sided tape. This stuff is your friend. It makes life so much quicker. You can use glue. If you're not into the tape thing, you can definitely use glue. But you have to wait for the glue to dry. So do all the gluing as step 1. Then I'm going to pinch it together like we did earlier. I do find this way the quickest now that I've practiced it. If you haven't tried it this way yet, you should, and expect the first, let's say 10 times to take ages and be really fiddly, but I promise you get faster. I absolutely promise. I'm going to go to a 4 stitch length. And then I'm just going to put these together. Now I'm going to put strap ends on, so I don't care how the ends look right now. I just want the fabric to sit in the middle. If you don't want to use strap ends, just make sure you tuck under the raw edge so it's not gross. You can stitch across the end if you need to, just to get to the other side, or you can just do a jump stitch. Either option is totally okay. Right, next one. Squish it together. And you can also rub it on the edge of the table if you want. Make sure it's going to stay where it's told. Then I'm going to line this up. I'm going to cut this one off so that it's not dragging in the way. Oh, this looks so cool. I wish I could keep half the bags I make, I tell ya. I've already got one of these. One of these. One of these, I've got an Empress. I've got 2 Temptresses. And a whole bunch of other bags. And I just need to make peace with the fact that I don't need that many. But this does look very cool. Right. Now that the handle's done, I can put them there. We won't need any more double-sided tape now. You can pop it away and go back to a 2.5 joining stitch length. And I'm gonna stitch around the top. Lifting it up and dragging it around to make sure that you get an even seam allowance everywhere. Slow and steady wins the race. Whoop. When I adjusted the bag just then, the needle wasn't all the way in, and that's why it made that weird noise. I was pulling and putting too much pressure on the needle, which made it bendy. And if I had have pushed further, it would have snapped the needle. Or bent it, so I couldn't sew. Either or. Okay, we've done all the way around. Little domestic tip, in these little side bits where the seams are, cut the bulk out. Trust me, we've still got more outside top stitching yet. So you want to cut that bit out of the way. And this one, and you can see I'm making a right proper mess, and I just don't even care. All goes in the bin eventually. So now you should be able to turn your bag through the hole you left in the lining. So I'm just going to grab a corner and shove it. Not even nicely, we're just going to shove it. Then I'm going to pull the lining over the bag like that. And then push out the exterior. Ta-da! Now it's got a few crinkles in it. Don't stress, we'll fix them. Then I'm going to put my hand into the zipper pocket, grab that opening and pull it through so I can stitch it closed. Now if you need to, add clips to this, but it's just a simple 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to pull the two pieces together. Needle down, readjust, pull, flat, stitch and back stitch. And then you can shove the lining back in, and we're going to close up the hole. So I put my fingers in like this up to the first knuckle. Pinch, fold it under, and pull tight. And that will always, well, it always does for me, put the raw edge on the inside out of my way. Stitch and back stitch. Tuck it in. Zip it down. And then we want to pull everything down. So you want to get that on the edge, and then I'm going to fold that over and clip it there. Then I'm going to use my fingers and I'm going to come down to this join, and I'm going to find the join of the lining and push them all together. So I'm grabbing the lining and the exterior there. And if you've got these, now's a good time to squish that seam so it's flatter and easier to sew. And then we're going to put a clip, and it's going to be facing this piece. Then again, I'm going to tuck my fingers in. So I've got my fingers literally here. Push that up so that you're grabbing, you want to be grabbing the fabric of the lining as well as the exterior and push them up against each other. If you don't, it'll be saggy later, which is not what we want at all. Okay? So from the inside, you should be pinching the lining fabric into these clips. Okay, opposite side. So again, we're going to fold that down. I'm going to fold that over. If you want to, you can clip or squish this seam at the top here, because that's where some more bulk will be, although we did cut out a lot of the bulk. Seam to seam, pinch and clip. Come down and do this join seam. Seam to seam. I'm going to squish it and then clip it. So I'll show you. That's how thick it is now. And then, once I squish it, that's now how thick it is. I don't know if you can see the difference, but I can. And it's significant as far as stitching's concerned. You don't have to pinch and clip it in any particular order. You just want to make sure that it's up in there. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that your lining is going to look too big for your bag. That's not what we want at all. See, the inside's now all pulled and clipped. Let's size 4 stitch length. And let's sew that together. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm not going to back stitch. I'm just going to make sure I've got lots of tails, and because I'll tie it off. And then we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch around. Do 1/4 if you're uncomfortable with 1/8 of an inch and you're worried you're going to fall off. So it is a bit thick there, but it's not impossible because we squished it. And because it's not actually that thick. If you're having problems on a domestic with this bag, just make sure the foam is smaller than the seam allowance, and that should solve most of your dramas too. Right, so I didn't back stitch. I'm going to pull on the tail, maybe. Grab my sewing awl, grab that loop, and it's going to pull through to the back, and then I can tie it off. trim off the tails. Same to this end. So I'm going to pull on it, grab that loop, yoink, and then we're going to tie it off. And you can go through the same loop. Don't do it more than 6 times. Anything more than that and it'll not where you want it. You'll get a knot like a loose one and then you got dramas. So that's one side done and it looks fabulous. Let's repeat all of those steps with the other side. So push the dart in, grab the seam, line the seam up, bring it over, squish it with pliers. It just helps to sew over it, I promise. I don't do anything unnecessarily. Alright, I'm gonna squish up here too, make it look good. And then I'm gonna make sure that the seams line up. Fold it over, pinch, clip. Fold it over, pinch, clip. That's half. Same with this half. So again, line that seam up. You can feel it with your fingers. Pinch clip. Same with the bottom. We're nearly done. I'm starting to get a little concerned about my space there. I might have to go to Bunnings. Actually, I don't think I've got any metal anyway. I'm gonna have to make a trip to Bunnings. Pinch, clip. Again, make sure that the seam's all up in there. If you're not grabbing the lining fabric as well, you're doing something wrong. Always check it. You can check it. You can see if you haven't grabbed it. It's not a difficult thing to notice. You'll see the join seam. Alright, nice and long. Into the first bit. And then slow and steady wins this race. And try and keep your elbows in. I just felt myself doing it again. If you do as much sewing as me, trust me, you do not want a shoulder injury. It wrecks your whole mojo, I promise. Alright, pull that out, trim them off. Use your sewall to get the loop out. I did used to use these, but one too many times I accidentally cut it. When it was too stiff to come out loosely, I'd accidentally cut it. And if you just heard that, that was my stomach. It's yelling at me for more food. You'd think I don't feed my stomach. Anyway. Tags together. You might be wondering why I'm doing this on the fabric side and not the vinyl side. And the answer is pretty simple. The fabric's busy and you won't see the knot. It's not as noticeable on this side. Oh, it's looking good. So, I'll attach the handles and then we're going for a trip to Bunnings. I might even bring you guys with me so I can show you what we buy and then how we deal with it. So what I want is I want this in this way, but I want this to come up and have a strap end there. So when in doubt, always do it this way so it's easy to work out. So what I want to do is I want to have the smooth side showing when I attach it like that. So you can just do it with one so you know. the screws are actually going to be on the top because we're going to have this facing out. You can do it the other way and have them facing in. It's not as fun. This will look cool. So we just need, these are all the screws that I've got set aside for all of these. I obviously haven't done them all yet, but I've got enough to get started. Electric screwdriver because it's amazing. My old white one that my child now has came from eBay, if you all want to know, and I believe this one came from Amazon. The lovely Sandra from the Garner Sewing Room got it, and it's just amazing, and I love it. Except that keeps happening because I think I'm using the wrong size point. It's so pointy it doesn't want to let go of the screws once I've screwed it in. Well, and it's magnetic. That's probably not helping my cause either. I'm just going to slide it on. You don't want any tails hanging out. If you can help it, cut them off before you slide it on. It's easier, I promise. Slide it on. I also want to, whoops, I'm going to put the weight of this on the table because that just shifted and it wasn't in the middle anymore. And then I'm going to pinch it on each end so it can't move and screw it in. It's not a hard process. It is a bit time consuming, but they do look amazing. So I do think that they're worth it. But it's up to you. It's your bag. You don't have to have strap ends, but if you don't, just make sure you've tucked the raw edge of the fabric in or it'll start fraying on the finished bag, which is probably not the look you're going for. I mean, it might be. I don't know. You could do that. You could have a whole frayed look. Weirdly enough, I can actually envision that. You'll probably want to zigzag it though, so it can only fray to a certain point. Other end. It's just easy to put them all on now. One more. And the next one. Alright. Happy days. I'm just gonna get rid of all these random bits of fluff. I'm just gonna leave that. So now what we want to do before we go any further is you want your, it's on the other end, rivet spacing template. If you don't have one of these yet, you're missing out. I love this thing. So I'm gonna push it up against the hardware that I just attached. Ooh. And if you don't have hardware, just line it up with the edge. And because it's 1 inch, you can line it up perfectly with the strap so that you get these dots perfectly in the middle. Now, I already know how, why is that not working? Don't you die on me, pen. Might need a refill. Very real possibility. I do use it a lot. So, or it just could be that the pink doesn't want to be drawn on. Very real option. I'm going to go with a white board marker since everything else doesn't want to mark, and I can just dot it inside. See, that worked. Line it up on the end, dot and dot. It's black, so it's superly easily seen, but it is a whiteboard marker, so you can wipe it off if you accidentally put the wrong dot in the wrong spot. Oh, and that rhymed. Apparently my brain gets quite excited when things rhyme. punch them all just now individually. If you don't have this hole punch, you can get like a hand squeezy one. You can also get some fancy Japanese one that you kind of put pressure on it and it twists and punches holes. I've seen them, they are kind of cool. I just don't need one, I've got this. I mean, if I saw one in an op shop or if I walked past one and it was cheap enough, I'd get it. Okay. I'm going to put all this away before I knock it all off the table, because we all know I will do that. And I'm going to grab the rivets. Now, if you don't have a cam press and you're just not interested in getting one, you can actually get something called a Chicago screw, which is like a screw-in rivet. So you don't have to have one of these to do bag making. You just buy all the screw-in options. So you can get screw-in rivets, screw-in bag feet. The screw-in rivets are called Chicago screws if you're looking for them in people's shops. Most things have a screw-in option, which is cool. And I could switch to them, I just don't want to. Now that I've invested in my cam presses and all of the crazy dies, there's no need. But it is an option if you haven't got one yet and you can't afford one of these. These are not the cheapest thing to buy. And they're also heavy, so postage is not cheap either. And I fully understand that. Just get Chicago screws and screw-in bag feet. So I'm just folding it in, pushing the rivet through. Put the cap on. Fold the bag out of the way to get it under. And then squish. And then you want to make sure that this is not twisted before we put it in the other end. On, through. It's looking adorable, but we're going to have to go to Bunnings to get the metal for the next bit. So, I'll bring the recording camera phone thing with me, and I will show you what to get. But so far, does that not look totally freaking awesome? Then we're just going to have, well, I'm going to have, not we, it's my bag. I'm going to put rivet magnets up the top through a metal steel bar. You will require a drill for this, just so you know. Alright, so we're in like the metal area, and you just want, hold on, it's like this piece here. It's $5.23, and it's just a length of aluminium flat bar. It's quite long, but you'll get like a couple of bags out of this, but it's not too thick, it's not too wide, and one of them will do. Alright, so I've marked 11 inches on here, and I have a metal blade in my jigsaw, and now I'm just going to cut it. I turned the volume off for this because you trust me, you don't want to hear it. It is quite loud through the video, and that would be weird. But it's just a metal blade. This is not very difficult to cut, but if you don't want to use this, you can just use boning from like a corset or something. I like the metal because it gives it a super stiff top bit, but each to their own, I guess. To smooth the edges out, I actually just rub it on concrete. I know that's not the, most thrilling way, but... And I'm just rotating it to do both sides, and then the other end. It's like glorified sandpaper. It just removes all of the rough edges, so it's not going to stab anything when we put it in the bag. Okay, so now we just take the open end, wherever that is, that's over here, and we're just going to thread it into the gap. Now sometimes at the ends it can be a bit tight, but it tends to get there eventually. And it'll also be a bit stubborn when you get to the other end. So I'm just going to use my sewall to shove it in that extra little bit, and you can see now that is much firmer than this side. Same thing again. The ends always, like starting it's always tricky. But after that bit it goes alright. You just got to get it past the double layer, see? And then in it goes. And then again, I'm going to use my sew all to shove that in. Oh, it's looking good. So now I just want to grab some rivet magnets in the small size. You want to trust me when you want to use small, because otherwise the big ones will be too big, but we're going to use 2. So we just need to mark that up. But 2 small rivet magnets in the top, I think, would be enough. And what's going to mark this? I'm going to use my whiteboard dry erase marker again. And I'm going to grab a nice long ruler. So the finish of this is 11.5 inches. So I think I want to go 3 inches in from each end. Alright, which is there. And there. And then we want to do it to this end as well. So line up 3 inches from the end there. And there. Now this is where you need your drill. Obviously there's a little bit more going on today because we're doing a lot of DIY. But what we're going to do is we're going to drill through the metal. Whoops, dropped it. We're going to drill through the metal. And I'm just really hoping that this is going to hold, actually, now that I think about it, because it's quite thick. I mean, it should. So we're going to drill with our drill, and I'm going to do this off camera because I don't know. I'm going to have to do it somewhere else. But we're going to drill through all of those holes to be able to put the magnets in. Alright, I'm going to use the drill press because hubby's not home, but you can just use a normal drill. I'm using a 2.5mm drill bit, and then I just kind of waggle it side to side a little bit to make sure that the hole is big enough and that there's no debris left over on the inside because you can't really see what you're doing. I'm going to punch all 4 bags. I did also blow down the area of all the dust before I did this to not dirty my bag too much because that would be sucky. Alright, I did one side to make sure it was going to work, and we got there. So, what we're going to do is we're going to put the cap up in here so I don't have to hold it. And then, we're going to I'm going to do the male part first. We're going to just push it through the hole. If you find your hole's not quite big enough, just wiggle around. It does fit, I promise. And then I'm just going to pop this under. Line it up in there like that. Now this won't squish down as much as it normally would because there's a big chunk of metal in the way, but it does still attach. Therefore that counts. So again, I'm going to pop this up into there so it's one less thing I have to hold, and then stab it through. This is obviously not for everyone. Or you could just put boning, like the plastic stuff in here instead of the metal, and you wouldn't have to do half of this. Squish it down, and voila. So then they should all just line up and be fabulous. The bag needs a bit of a squish, but ta-da! Magnets in the top, and then you can just boop, open them. So it's something a bit different, and it just stops you having the overstrap. I just thought they were really cool. And I have so many power tools that may as well, you know, play with them. So we've got that as the back or the front. And then you switch it over and we've got this. So the print really does stand out on this. But there you go. Hope you learned something new today. And don't be afraid to go and play with power tools. They are so much fun.